Hello, hello, hello. Testing, testing. Is this thing on? Hello, hello. Can you guys hear me? Just wait another couple minutes. We got people still trickling in. First, I want to thank you guys all for showing up and giving me the time to share my testimony with you. It really means a lot to me because God has broken a lot of chains in my life. And, you know, I couldn't do it without the faith that I had. So I'm going to share this video with you guys, and after this video, I'm going to give you my testimony. So, Kevin, go ahead. You're going to see that I went from surviving to living. One second, guys.
Sorry, your tech person is having issues. Yeah, exactly right. When it goes wrong, everyone listens. Sorry, I'll restart it. Let's get this going again.
That you want to make a change. How many times? How many?
I was young.
How many times are you going to doubt yourself?
In total,
How
I
many
spent about
times are you going to
15
repeat
years
the same
incarcerated.
mistakes before you finally experience enough pain that you want to make a change? How many times? How many times you gonna tell yourself you giving up? How many times you gonna write it down and rip it up? How many times have you invested in luck? You find that penny facing heads down, will turn around and flip it up. Don't you believe in the fake? Believe in your faith. Now watch how everything just seems to fall into place. And you ain't even gotta try, it's like you win in the race. Cause every time you praise his name, you'll be receiving his grace. Embrace. Now keep me from the wicked, protect me from the snares, and help me spread this message to anybody who cares. Cause I done wrestle with them lions and tigers and bears. I'm wearing the armor of God, intruders beware. How many times have you prayed in the name of? How many times have you shown in the same love that he shows to you? How many times? How many times? How many times have you prayed in the name of? How many times have you shown in the same love that he shows to you? How many times? How many times? How many times you gonna lie to yourself? How many times you been denying yourself? How many times? How many times? How many times you looked inside of yourself and you're ashamed of what you see, but you don't ask for no help? You'd rather drown in misery and take that rum off the shelf. You pour another shot and blame it on the hand you were dealt, but you're forgetting about the pain that all your family felt while you were running in them streets like a slave for a bag of dope. Your parents worried that their baby might not make it home. They lie awake and they wait and they crying by the phone, praying that they don't get the call that the baby is gone. I know it hurts, but everything that I'm speaking is true. I only say it cause I know it, I used to be you, but I done made it and I'm grateful I'm one of the few. Now I'm headed back just to say that you can make it too. How many times have you prayed in the name of? How many times have you shown in the same love that he shows to you? How many times? How many times? How many times? doesn't matter how many times you fail. It doesn't matter how many times you almost got it right. People aren't going to keep track or care about your failures, and neither should you. It's more important that you learn from them, that you grow from them, and that you keep pushing forward. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many times you got it wrong. What truly matters is how many times you get it right. It doesn't matter how many times you've been beaten down. It doesn't matter how many people believe in you now. All that matters, you believe in yourself. Cause there's a reason that you're breathing and he's keeping you round. And everything that you've been going through is part of a plan. But I know it's hard to trust it and you can't understand. Believe me, we crash and we burn, we live and we learn. If you could only see the blessings that we get in return, you'd be like, I'll shine through the storm and the struggle. Hard times when I know I'm in trouble. I'll rise through the ash and the rubble. How many times have you prayed in the name of? How many times have you shown in the same love that he shows to you? How many times? How many times? How many times have you prayed in the name of? How many times have you shown in the same love that he shows to you? How many times? How many times? How many times? Never give up on yourself. Stop doubting yourself. Because if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will either. As long as you have air in your lungs, you still have a chance to get it right. How many times have you prayed in the name of? How many times have you shown in the same love that he shows to you? How many times? How many times? How many times?
So I played that video because it tells a really good story. My name's Michael Rihtarich. I'm a child of God. I'm a father. I'm a friend. I'm a brother. I'm an active member of the community, and I'm an employee. I never used to be those things. I was born to a real poor family. I'm Native American of the Makah people. And, you know, for generations, my family depended on the state. That's a lot, you know, getting help, getting assistance. So with that came a lot of alcohol, drinking, and physical, mental, emotional abuse. And I came, you know, I used to call myself a survivalist because I feel like I've had to survive my whole life. I had to figure things out. Life, you know, my mom had given me away when I was born to her sister, but my mom shared some things with me, like she didn't want to have me. She tried getting rid of me, and, you know, told me this stuff when I was real young. And yeah, I just didn't know how to really take it. So at a young age, trying to survive, being poor, I've had to fight bullies, and I made it a daily thing. I used to like fighting bullies. I got really good at it, and I made, people respected me, but that was an unhealthy way of respect, right? We were always hungry. There was beer before food, always in my house. It was just, yeah, it was a struggle. And, as a young kid, you don't know what to do with that. You don't, but I grew up real fast. And I ran away when I was 13 years old and started living on my own. Started making money and looking out for myself. It was safer. And I started committing crimes, right? My first crime I committed, I got sent to juvie for 2 weeks. It was a burglary. I broke into this concession stand, and we stole all this candy. And we were driving down the road on our bikes. I had my pants tucked into my socks, all the candy I could fit down my pants on a bike, driving down the road, and I got pulled over, and they took me to juvie, and I remember going into that cell and being okay, feeling comfortable. Like, this is mine. I was in there by myself. That was safe for me. I'd keep my cell nice, like it was mine. This was my spot. That vicious cycle lasted a long time. I'd get out, go home, go back on the run. I started drinking when I was, 9, but I really started drinking when I ran away and started blacking out, and just at 13, 14 years old, became a blackout drinker. And then I was committing crimes that I don't even remember, but I'd wake up in juvie, why am I in here? And they'd read off a list of crimes that I did. And I couldn't even fight because I don't know if I did them or not. I was blacked out, so plead guilty. I don't mind doing time. About, 17, I got into hard drugs. I started using, the harder ones, and it was a life that I became very okay with. I was really good at surviving. I was really good at manipulating. I was really good at all of it. And the world never felt safe to me. It never, I didn't have safe people. My safe people were the people that were in jail, the guards, the counselors, those were my safe people. And then when I got out and I seen safe people, they made me very uncomfortable because I didn't understand it, So I spent, that vicious cycle. I've racked up a good, I want to say, over 39 convictions on my record, and over 9+ felonies, and I did a lot of prison time. And eventually I thought I was okay. Like I'd try to figure it out on my own, right? Well, I'm gonna backtrack a little bit because I got to put God in there. So, in the beginning, when I started going to juvie, there was this little old lady. Her name was Doris, and this lady didn't know who I was, but I was in the room and I was hurting on myself. And she came in the room. They let her come and talk to me, and on my hurt arms, she put her hands on them, and she prayed for me. And it made all the hairs on my body stand up, back of my neck stand up, and I was like, what is this? About 13, 14 years old at the time, I didn't. And she told me Jesus loves you. And I just lost it. I started bawling. And from then on, she would always come and visit me. And she called herself my spiritual mom. And she, we did the prayer, yes, God, I invite you into my life. I invite you to be my Lord and Savior. However, I had conditions. I still want to do this, But, yes, you're my Lord, but I need to keep you over here for now. Because I have to do all this over here, right? And that didn't work. Though he's always been in my corner, he was waiting for my full surrender. He would, and if that lady never came into my life, I would have never known who to turn to when life got at its darkest, lowest moment. I wouldn't have known that. All I got to do is put my hands up and ask for the one that I know can save me. So I've been married, divorced. During my blackout drinking, I was a womanizer, right? I didn't know how to treat women. So I got married, got in blackout drunk. We got in an altercation. I went to prison. This went on for a long time. After the divorce, I wanted to give up on life. I thought, I love this woman. How could you, right? How could you do this to me? Because I didn't know how to look at it. It was poor me on everything I did. And after my divorce, I quit my job, gave her everything, and went to what I knew best. Went back to drinking, went back to using. So I went to the casinos. I got a real bad gambling addiction. And I'd spend all this money that I had, or would try to hustle or whatever. However I get some money, I put it in the casino. And I met the mother of my child, Ava, in these casinos. And we, I met her in the casinos, and we had about 4 or 5 years together, and we were toxic together, very toxic. We didn't know how to love each other. We both had our own trauma. We both had trauma embedded in us, and all we were trying to do was take care of each other, but we didn't know how. And in 2017, she passed. 2017, Ava was born. However, when Ava was born, I was in prison for another offense, for breaking into a vending machine to try to get money so I could feed my addiction, feed my gambling addiction. But I said it was to take care of Ava and her mom, make sure they had a place to stay. But that really wasn't the case. It was because I was sick. And, I went to prison for breaking in this vending machine. Ava was born in 2017, September 3rd, 2017, and I was in prison. I got out 5 months when she was 5 months old. Her mom was taking care of her. She lived with her parents. And, I was telling her everything she needed to hear while I was in prison. Oh, I changed. My life is good. I'm going to be way different. I changed. Yeah, I've been in prison 30 plus times. I say that every single time I went. I changed. Something's different. And I got out, and I held Ava in my hands, just that little girl in my hands. And I knew that there's nothing I want to do for her. I knew that I could not allow her to have a life that I had, that I couldn't allow that to happen. But I didn't know how to get better. I didn't know how to get better. I tried doing it on my own. I tried programs, I tried treatment, I tried therapy, I tried all of that. I gave up committing crimes, right? And I was able to get me in it. When Ava was 10 months, her mom passed away. Because we went back into that vicious cycle of being toxic together. Her mom passed away, and 2 weeks before she passed away, her mom made me make a promise to her that I'd never give Ava to anybody. And I made that promise to her. We didn't know she was going to die. But, I made her that promise. And so when she passed away, when she was 10 months old, I have this kid who's 10 months, a single dad who's only knew how to survive, lived on the streets. I didn't know what I was going to do. Scared. I was terrified. But I love that little girl. I love that little girl more than life itself. And so I had to make a commitment to quit committing crimes, quit getting money the only way I knew how, which was robbing, stealing, lying, cheating. I had to quit all that. So that means I have to ask people for help. I have to get rejected. I have to hear no. I don't like being rejected. It doesn't feel good, But I did it. I got real uncomfortable. And I was able to get us housing. We stayed at a shelter, me and Ava. Well, first we stayed from shelter to shelter. We moved all over Washington. And I got this little girl who's 10 months, and I'm moving her around the state just trying to make it. And we finally land in Shelton, and we get some long-term housing, right? And everything seems like it's going okay. But guess what? I didn't give up addiction. I didn't give up that alcoholism because I didn't know how. I didn't know how, and I didn't want to. It helped me. It helped me. 2022, I'm driving in the car with my daughter, and I have a fifth of Jack Daniels in my leg. And I have drugs in my pocket. I get pulled over. And my child gets taken out of my care. And they didn't take her right away. I went to the hospital. My friend took her. We went home. A week later, CPS showed up on my door to come remove my child from me because of that. I had to tell my daughter that it was going to be okay. She was 4 years old when this happened, and I had to tell her she was going to be okay. To go ahead and go with these nice people, everything's going to be okay. So they removed her from my care. And that was life as I knew it. My sole purpose just got yanked from me because of my addiction, because of my choices. And there were some legalities that told me I'd never get my child back. It wasn't possible. To not even try, I'd lost her. And that was hard for me to handle. So I did some things that, I gave God, they say don't give God an ultimatum, right? But I said, God, if you give me my kid back, I promise it will be different. It will be different. Otherwise, I don't think I want to live anymore. And, And I meant it. I meant it. Because I knew from all the times I listened to Doris that there's that faith. Have faith, you know. So those legalities, we found ways around them. I got an attorney. We found a way around those legalities. And I got my daughter back in 3 months. Now that video you seen up there, I built a community so strong. I got people everywhere that love me, care for me. Everywhere I show up, I spread a little bit of hope, a little bit of joy. Because there was a time when I didn't have any. If you look at those mugshots up there, I carried that look on my face, that prison look, for a good 25, 30 years. I didn't know how to smile. Today I get to smile. Today I get to give that little girl everything she deserves, you know. And it's because I have faith in God. There's nothing. I'm 44 today. In the life I live, I shouldn't have made it this long. I've wrecked. I've been in some real crazy accidents. Life, like, I should have just lost my life, you know. But God has a purpose for me. There's a reason I'm standing here today. And if I can leave you guys with anything, it's change is possible. Change is possible. Faith, just have faith. Faith. It might seem like it's hard, but if you really, truly need it, have faith. Have faith. Because I don't need anymore. I don't need. God takes care of all my needs. I might want some things, but I have everything I need. I have everything I need because I believe. That's all I got. Thank you, guys. And I also, we got my friend Brenda Lopez, who is amazing, and I love her so much. She has a story. She's going to follow up. And my daughter, she wants to take a couple minutes to say something. And I always love to give her the microphone because she's amazing.
And also, the part where I got taken away, they actually told me that we were going to go do something fun. And they were like, oh, we're going to go do something fun. But they lied. And also, the last day that I was in foster family, one night I was feeding the dog because we were having dinner, and they knew I didn't like the meal that they were making. And they yelled at me. They slapped my arm. They told me to go to my room, and I said, okay, I'll go to my room. And then I sat there, cried, missed my family, didn't know what to do. And so I knew that God was with me, and I prayed to him, and I said, please, God, please help me. I'm with a beautiful family, and I need help. And the next day was a miracle. I went home. It was...
God is good.
Thank you for your testimony. Both of you, Ava, you too, you're amazing. Happy birthday, Michael. And thank you for asking me to come out here with you. So my name's Brenda Lopez. I am 56. I have 2 children and 7 grandchildren. I'm known as Mima and Grandma, and those things are like those people are the best thing in the world. Like, you know, I was raised up in a family. I'm a Parkland Spanaway kid. I was raised in Parkland Spanaway, the youngest of 7, and well, actually 10. But my dad's side is Mexican, and they are in California. So the ones that lived at home were 3 older brothers and myself. And then I had 2, so it was actually 6. And then I had a brother and sister a little bit older. They didn't move in until they were teenagers. So I was raised in a family of boys, really, and we had poverty. We were plagued with all kinds of different things like drug addiction, alcoholism. My primary caregiver was my step-grandfather, and because I think, I'm not sure why, but I think because my mom didn't know how to take care of 3 boys and a little girl. And so I was shipped off to my grandfather's all the time. And I was abused from age of 5 till I was 12 from him. And because there's kids in here, I won't say about the type of abuse, but I think you guys can fill in that blank. And so in order to make that abuse easier, I was fed alcohol. So I learned early on that I was just a kind of an object, right? And that as an object, if I and to drink and to do drugs and that really that I wasn't a human being or looked at as a human being, but as an object that for other people's benefits. And so needless to say, everybody knew, my mom, my dad, my brothers, my cousins, my aunts. Not sure how the school didn't get involved because I rarely went to school. I was a gymnast also. My grandfather paid for me to go to gymnastics, and I became a really good gymnast. But nobody did anything about the missed school and just all the things that were going on. I know one time, I must have been about 7 or 8, pictures were found. And so I thought that was going to be the thing that saved me, right? And it wasn't. Pictures were found, they were shared amongst the family. And really what was really odd to me was that though I was the little girl being abused, I was the one nobody wanted anything to do with. So when we went around to people, my grandfather would take me around to all of his friends' house, and everybody knew. And I was the one that couldn't come in the house, and I was the one that was shunned. And so it was a really hard childhood. My brothers knew enough that, and there was drugs and alcohol. Like I said, that was something that we did at home, not away from home with our parents. So the thing is they knew if I went out, I better come back with some drugs and some money and some alcohol, cigarettes. He was allowed to buy me 4 cartons of cigarettes a month. I mean, this is a little elementary school girl I'm talking about. When I was sick, he was allowed to, my parents would have me stay home from school. He was allowed to bring me oranges, vodka, cigarettes, Doritos. It was that was my childhood. So like Mike, I became a very angry little girl, and I started beating up the bullies. So anybody that bullied people in schools, I was the person that would stick up for them, because nobody stuck up for me. It was really important that I just, it was hard for me to see other people hurt and made fun of. And so anyway, so that was my childhood. By the age of 12, I went to my first inpatient treatment center, and I really thought that was going to be the change in life. I was able at that age to stand up to my abuser and say, you will not abuse me anymore. And that stopped. But so I get out of treatment, and I have to go back to the same home that I live at now with my parents and my brothers. I'll backtrack a little bit too. When I was in the 6th grade, our house burnt down. Now, I think that it's really important for me the one thing that sticks out to me all across my whole life is Jesus. So when I was a little girl, my mom when I was 5, she married a man that I called my dad. And we would go to his parents' house during the holidays and things like that. And to church sometimes on Easter and do the Easter egg hunts and stuff. And I knew, and in our home too, we had above the fireplace mantle a picture of Jesus. And then when we would go to their house, they had that same Jesus picture. And I knew, and then we would go to church and we'd learn about Jesus. And I knew that there was something really good about Jesus, because every time I would go to my grandparents' house, I just felt so loved and warm, and it just was a really good thing. And so when our house burnt down in the 6th grade, it burnt to the ground. And the one thing I remember being saved was that picture of Jesus. And So those are just little things that stick out in my heart, I suppose. And then my mom and dad split up at that time, and we were all left with my mom because he was our stepdad, right? So we were all left with our mom, but she was out doing her own thing now. And so it was just me and my 3 brothers that were out doing their own thing. So really, it was just me. And I was supposed to start 7th grade in a new school, and I just was like, I just didn't belong in the school. We didn't have food at home. We didn't have any supervision. There was just nothing. And it was a really hard time. And I decided at that time I would not go to school. I told my mom I wanted to meet my biological dad. And so she did reach out to him or his family and was able to connect with him. And for Christmas that year, I was sent on a bus to Lawton, Oklahoma, to go meet my biological dad. And that was going to be a change for me. And I just was so excited. And when I got there, my dad was just drunk. He was drunk the whole time. And I remember one time I said, Dad, I really want to call my mom. And he ripped that phone cord out of the wall, and he said, she's had you all your life. I'm having you until you're 18. And that was a scary thing. And so I waited until he passed out, because I know that whole story. Anyway, I waited until he passed out, and I had my bags packed, and I ran away. And I ran to a neighbor's, and anything could have happened. But what happened was God put me into these people's house. This lady, she took me in. I told her, I said, I got to get back to Washington. I'm just a little girl. I'm 12 years old. Anyways, she took the day off, and she got some money from her boss, and she took me 2 hours back to the bus stop, and she sent me back on my way back to Washington State. And that was a really interesting thing, too, because here I was, 12 years old, smoking cigarettes and all that, right? And so it was Christmas Eve, and I was on the bus Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and the day after Christmas. And on the bus, you could smoke on the bus at that time, but on the bus, you had some people were in the front and some people were in the back. And it was really interesting how the people in the front would try to get me to come up and be in the front with them, but the people in the back would try to get me to go in the back with them. And so the people in the front they were singing Christmas songs, and it was a healthy thing. And anyways, I just remember that, as well as just kind of this tension in my life, always the good, the bad, right? And so I got back home and just carried on my lifestyle, drugs and alcohol and all of that, really from the age of 12 to the age of 16 when I got pregnant. It's a lot of the blacking out, a lot of fighting, a lot of drugs and drinking, and my parents really weren't available. If my mom would give us Quaaludes and, do you want to get high? And so she would give us all these drugs. And then if she didn't, when we would come down, she would give us all of the amitriptyline and all this stuff to make us sleep for days. So that was, but then I got pregnant at 16. And I thought, this is going to be the change I need. I thought, I'm going to be able to get on welfare so I can get out of the home, and I'm going to have this little baby. And really what I was missing in my life was somebody to believe in me and some love and structure. And in my heart, I was like, I'm going to have this baby that I can love and that will love me back. And so I got clean and sober, and I had this beautiful little baby. I mean, she was just amazing. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing in the world. But I was also a drug addict and an alcoholic, so it wasn't very long after she was born. I breastfed for about 3 months, and then I started using again. And I was with her dad, and he used the whole time, and he's 10 years older than I was. But the long and short of it is I was still an alcoholic and a drug addict, right? And that was the lifestyle, and I started back into that. But I knew that wasn't what I wanted to do in my life. I wanted something different. And I just didn't know how to get there. Very similar to Mike's story, you know. I just did not know how to get there, and I didn't have any role models. And so I would get clean and sober for a couple years, then I would use again, and I would get clean and sober, and I would use again. So my daughter, and then I had another child. 7 years later, I had my son, Danny. It's my daughter, Stephanie, my son, Danny, and was taking him through that. And I got clean and sober when I was pregnant, and then I breastfed for 3 months, and then I was right back into that same lifestyle. And I remember I had had a few miscarriages. I had a few abortions. And that last miscarriage, I was just like, God, I just cannot do this. I am so sorry, you know. And I don't want to hurt babies. I don't want to be hurt like this. And so I convinced the doctors to give me a hysterectomy. That's kind of a pivotal part in my story, because when I went into the hospital, I said, God, if this doesn't get me clean and sober, please help me, no matter what it takes. And so I went in and had my surgery. It took a total of 2 weeks of recovery, because I got out. I had to go back in for emergency surgery again. And as soon as I got out, the first time I used, I fell into a meth-induced psychosis the first time. And I didn't know what that was. And I don't know if you all know what that was, but my thinking was really off. And, you know, I started thinking it just was really, really off. You know, every sign that was on the street was talking to me, right? I thought that maybe there was people in the trees and all of this kind of stuff. So, and I had 2 little kids, right? My daughter was 11 and my son was 4. And I knew that my thinking was off, and I knew that I needed to do something, and I did not know how. And at probably about 7 months after that, I was going through this mental health thing. My car broke down one day, so I called my boyfriend to come get me and my kids. And I didn't want my kids around him, so I called my mom and dad, and I said, hey, can you come and get the kids for the day? My car broke down. I'm going to go see this person, and I don't want the kids around him. So they did. And I said, I'll be back tonight to get them. And so things happened during that day, and I walked, I don't know, for hours to go back out to get my kids. And I got there about midnight. Everybody's asleep. The one condition I had with my mom was, don't take my daughter to this place. She's been abused there. Don't take her there. And so I came back, and I'm knocking on the door, and they're not answering. And so I jumped in the window, and my mom and her husband were there. And I said, where are my kids? And they said, and my stepdad said, well, your son's in there on the mattress, and your mom took her to that place. She told her not to. He didn't say that, but to that place, right, where she had been abused. And I jumped in the window. I grabbed my son. I wrapped him in a blanket. I jumped in their truck, which I knew the keys were in it. I started it up. I took off, and I got pulled over by the police a block from there where my daughter was. And they, you know, I was met with guns, and they drew their guns, and they took my son from me, and I was arrested and went to jail. Now that was so scary, and I couldn't believe these police officers had these guns on me, because I wasn't I wasn't violent, well, although I was, right, back when I was a teenager, but I just couldn't believe it, because I was a good person to me, right? And so I went to jail, and prior to that was in August. So in April was my 28th birthday. And that boyfriend that I didn't want around my kids left this little Bible. It's in my car. I meant to bring it in. Left this little black Bible at my doorstep. And I carried that Bible around for a couple years. I read it all the time. And I tried to apply what was in the Bible into my life and what I was doing. And I did see miracles happening, like the things that it said, do this, and then I just saw positive things happening when I applied some of the principles of the Bible into my life. And so I got out of jail, and while I was in jail, I cried a lot. And there was an agency that came in. It was called New Connections, and they told us about they told us about this program that could help us get clean and sober and get housing and all this stuff. And when I left, when they let me out of jail, it was like midnight. And I walked to the doors of that place, the New Connections, and they were closed. And so I called that boyfriend again, right? Because I didn't know what to do. Called that boyfriend again, and he picked me up. And I just needed to stay until morning. Then I could take off and go find my kids. And they were all using and partying, and I tried not to, and I tried not to. All night, they were using and partying, trying to get me to, and I was like, no, 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 no. And by morning, I was using with them, and I thought, this is not, I don't want to do this. And so I took off from there, and I went to my mom's house to go find my kids, and I knocked on the door, and my mom, when she got up and she came to the door, and when she understood it was me, she opened the door and she pushed me. She said, we don't want you here. Well, that was kind of the story of my life, right? They never wanted me there. Nobody ever wanted me there. And I remember, similar to Mike also, that was way out in Graham. And so the Narrows Bridge is quite a ways from Graham, but I started walking, and I was going to walk to the bridge and jump off. That was my goal for that day. And I was like, God, I can make that split second of a decision to jump from that bridge, and that's what I'm going to do, because if I can't have my kids here, I don't want to be here, And so I'm walking miles, and I keep thinking that, and my thinking isn't cleared up yet because I have not healed from all of that psychosis that I was in, and so and I'm walking, and I think that again, and I'm like, there's nothing you can do about it, right? And about that time, my legs give out on me. And in this people's yard, and they pull up at the same time, and they're like, are you okay? Can we help you? And I'm like, who are these people, right? And I said, I really need an ambulance. I need to go to the mental health hospital. And so they called the ambulance, and I went to the mental health hospital where I started to recover. And from there, I called my sister and said, this is where I am, this is what I want to do. And I left that on a voicemail. She called CPS. During that time, so my mom, when they pulled my son from my arms, they gave my son to my mom and left my daughter where she was. And so I had all of that to deal with, right, process. And my mom gave my son to my sister-in-laws, two sister-in-laws that we were never friends. And they took him down to the sheriff's office and said, we don't want him. And he was 4, and he remembers that. Like, he's 31 right now, and he's this big old guy, but he will cry telling you about that day because he remembers them saying, we don't want him. And they took him into the CPS, and that's how my CPS case was opened. And then my sister told him that I was in the mental health hospital, and that's where I was served paperwork. So that's like a very traumatic story. But then I went to court from there, and they said 2 hours a week visitation, and I left the courtroom with hope that I was going to be able to see my kids. And my brother picked me up from the mental health hospital that day. He'd just gotten out of prison, and he picked me up from the mental health hospital and took me to his and his girlfriend's house, and they were drug dealers. And I stayed clean and sober really that whole week because I was going to go see my kids but I was so sick. Not only from my addictions, but I was actually really sick. I had I don't remember if it was bronchitis or something. I was sick. And I remember my brother said to me, it was time for me to go see my kids, and he said, here's $5 for your visit. You can buy your kids some snacks. And I said, oh, is that my $5? And he said, yeah. And I said, give me $5 worth of dope. And he did. He said, are you sure? And I said, I'm sure. I can't get up to go. And so he did, and I went into the bathroom, and I was looking in the mirror, and I looked half dead, and I was crying, and I said, Jesus, I cannot do this. I don't want to live with this stuff. I am a drug addict and alcoholic. I don't know how to live without it. I want to be a mom to my kids. I just don't know what to do, and I just need you. Please be the Lord over my life. Be in my heart. I will follow you wherever. and I crumbled up those drugs, and I threw them in the garbage, or in the toilet, and flushed the toilet. And that was my pivotal moment. My brother drove me to see my kids at the CPS office. They did not bring my kids. And I was thinking, God, I just gave my life to you, and you didn't bring my kids. And I said, but I'm going to follow you anyway. And so I told my brother, don't come back and get me. And I had this little red suitcase. I'm going to follow God. And I thought that meant I needed to go live underneath the bridge. So I started walking that way. Right? I started walking down to the bridge. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I remembered about that place I learned about in jail, the New Connections. And it was during the day. And I walked to the New Connections, and I said, hey, I got there. They were open. I said, God brought me here, and you're going to help me, and here's what I need. And they said, you don't look well. You just go into the back where all those clothes are, and you just go to sleep. And when you wake up, you go through all the clothes and get what you think you can carry. And so that's what I did. And when I woke up, I did that. And I put them in these garbage bags. And they said, okay, we're going to go for a walk. And they walked me up to this place. It was a clean and sober shelter for women and children. And they took me there. And then they let me in. And I had no ID or anything. And they weren't supposed to let you in if you didn't have your ID, right? But they did, and they said, you just need to go sleep for the weekend, and we'll start working on your stuff on Monday. And so I was like, okay. And so I lived there. That was August 25th, 1998. That was the last time I ever used drugs. And I was at that clean and sober shelter. I started getting my visits with my kids, and I was looking for a church. This is really huge for me. You were made to go to church, different churches, while you were living in the shelter. And I did not feel connected to any of the churches, but I really wanted to give back to God. I ended up getting my son back while I was there. I went to inpatient treatment, 2 outpatient treatments. I did everything that I was supposed to do. And then some. I got some college classes to learn about early childhood education. And it was really hard living there. And anyways, there's this big church right down the road from where the clean and sober shelter was, and it had this big sign on it that said, you are loved. But it was so beautiful, and the people that were going in there that I would see, I just didn't feel like they would accept me. I didn't belong, and so I never went there. I would go to all these other churches, and I never felt connected. And one day, my son was reunited with me at the shelter, and I said, God, I'm not going to church today. I was just frustrated. And he said, no, I want you to get up and get dressed and go to that church. And it was the First United Methodist Church in Tacoma. And I said, well, okay. And so I got up and I went to that church, and it was amazing. It was so beautiful. And, at Prayer and Concerns, I went down and I got the microphone and I said, this is who I am. And I was so skinny, and anyways, I said, this is who I am. This is where I've been. This is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to give back to God and find a family home. And if you guys will have us. And, anyways, after church, they invited me to coffee hour, and we had coffee. And then they invited me to Sunday school, and we went to Sunday school. And I never left. I started volunteering there. I had a job. I got a job. Had a job as a secretary. I started volunteering at the church to give back to God and cleaning rooms. And so when the maintenance guy was leaving and the janitor position came open, I asked if I could apply, and I got that part-time janitor position. And it just changed my life. This congregation was amazing. They loved me. They became my role models. They became everything that you would think that you would get in a family, right? They taught me how to parent my kids. They took me on play dates. I became the manager of the church. They sent me to school. I became the boiler fireman at the church and operated the boilers. I became the head of maintenance and the building manager. Then I became the youth director and the wedding coordinator. So I ran the church and I loved it. It was just so beautiful and wonderful. And I would go up on top of the church and pray for the city, and I would pray for the church. And during that time, the juvenile court that had the guardian ad litem of my kids, she, because I had the same phone number, and I did eventually get out of the shelter and got my own apartment. At 3 years, I bought a brand new house. So this is all God, right? I'm just going to grab God's hand and hold. That's the whole thing. I just said God, and I grabbed his hand, and I've just been walking with it ever since. And so so at a couple years in, the juvenile court they thought maybe they would develop a program to help parents in the court system, to educate them about the system, and give them some kind of support. And so the person that was my kid's guardian ad litem, who was never going to give me back my kids, and probably rightly so, right? I had a long way to go. But they did give me back my kids, and I did change and corrected that mental health stuff that I had going on. And so anyways, so they said, well, we're gonna apply for a grant to develop a program called Parent for Parent that we don't know what it looks like. There's no other program like it. We don't even know if someone like you could do that. We might have to hire a professional. But if we get that grant, would you consider applying? And I thought, well, yeah, of course, because if God's asking me to step up, I'm gonna, right? And so they got the grant, and I applied, and I got the position, and they were like, okay, we're going to give you $10,000 for this position, and then, that we'll pay you too, but we want a program that will educate the parents about the dependency process, give them support at the courthouse, and you have to create a video also. And I said, sure, yeah, no problem. And at the end of 6 months, you no longer have a job, and we want this program to be self-sustaining. And I said, oh, yeah, I could do that, right? Because I got God's hand, and God's not going to put me up to something he's not going to help me do. And so I kept my other job. I had all those other jobs at the church. I also did some house cleaning on the side because I had 2 little kids and now a mortgage and all of that. And so and prior to that, I had done some work for the Office of Public Defense, speaking to the legislature, trying to get funding for the attorneys that represent the parents, and that was really successful too. And one senator, he heard my 3-minute story, and he came out and he said, you need to create a program just like how you succeeded. You need to create a program like that for others. And so I had that in my head. And so when I developed that program, I looked at my life and how did I get this recovery? And how did I get this wonderful life? And I looked at the AA program because it was the only one that I knew that was self-sustaining, right? People wanted to help more people and give back and all of that. So I developed it very similar to the AA program. And at 6 months, and it was very successful, and it's still going today. It's legislatively funded in every county in the state of Washington today, and there's lots of me and Mike's running around, with changed lives and giving our kids something different than we had. And so there was that, and then I started replicating it around the state of Washington, and then I decided that I needed some education because I still only had a 6th grade education. And so, God can move mountains, right? Miracles can happen. He opens doors that nobody else can, and you can't shut them. How did I get put in that position through all that stuff that I went through, right? And be able to pull it off, if you will. And it's because God was there with me, and God had a calling on my life. And so I went to school. I got a college degree. I asked the Office of Public Defense if they would give me a social worker job. And they were like, oh, without a college degree, we can't. And so they said, but we're going to modify the policy, and if you are in school getting your degree, we will give you that job. And so I went and got my college degree, and I took psychology, and I dissected my life and all the things that I had been through and what my mom had been through. And Then I became the first birth parent as a defense social worker, and now there's just many, 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 many of us. And I think that the most important thing for me is that why I do all of this work. And I have 7 grandkids. My oldest granddaughter just graduated high school. My youngest grandson he'll be 4. And they're amazing. And I spend so much positive time with them, and I give them all that love that I didn't give, and I teach them, and, they're just the most important thing to me. And I did that with my children, too. My daughter went through a lot, so it took a lot for us to mend our relationship. My son he has had a really good life, and got my daughter out of that abuse that she was in. And so I guess that for me, I don't know where I would be without God, right? But for the grace of God, there go I. And it's been a pretty tragic experience. And I do what I do and help parents and people, anybody. I mean, my worst enemy could be cold, and I would take my coat off for them, right? Because that's just the kind of person that I am. And I do what I do because I know that there's a lot of people that have come up in that similar background that don't know what love is, that haven't been given that chance and have not been educated in the way that we should be. I think that God intended for us to be. And so I want to be there for them and help them change, because I know change is possible also. So I think that's it for me. Thank you.
And I just want to follow up. For me, I believe for Brenda too, but this testimony was very important, because when you're out there and you see someone struggling on the streets, or you see someone that's hurting, that was me at one time. I was that person, and so I also wanted to let you guys know, I spent half my life in those courtrooms, and now I'm back in those courtrooms on the other side, fighting for parents. So God is good, amen? Thank you guys for coming.
Jesus loves you.
Now go get your cake and ice cream, please. There's a lot of it.
Hey, just a quick note, as you're making your way over, we do need to be a little quiet. We have our Korean church over here meeting, so just real quietly through the narthex and into Dawson Hall, and we'll keep the door closed. Thank you.